Warning, the following video may contain sequences which some viewers may find disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's an early morning. You just got out of the house, ready to face another dreary day. As you walk along the sidewalk, you start going over the things you are supposed to do today. Remembering what groceries you have to pick up before you get home, wondering what you're going to do for lunch at noon. You pass near a local business and you discover something odd. There's a dumpster on fire outside. Realizing how dangerous this could potentially be, you call the fire department. They arrive and put out the flames. They take a look inside, and their stomachs immediately turned. What was being burnt, you ask? It was the dismembered bodies of 3 people. Our case starts in Fort Worth, Texas, on September 22, 2021. Firefighters responded to a dumpster fire outside a local business in the area. Inside the dumpster were the dismembered body parts of 3 people, a male and 2 females. One of the bodies was identified relatively quickly, however. David Luaris, aged 42. He had a distinctive tattoo which one of the dismembered parts had. He was known to be in the Dallas area, among other places. The 2 others were identified sometime after. However, the police chose to withhold that information from the public. According to the police, though the parts were heavily dismembered, there were still some parts missing. The police quickly started an investigation. A killing like this is clearly not ordinary. This was a triple homicide, and whoever did this had the gall to dismember the bodies after already killing the victims. This is the makings of a psychopathic individual. The culprit, however, was pretty sloppy. A surveillance camera showed a man driving a Jeep Grand Cherokee to said dumpster, dumping contents of several containers into it over a few trips, then lighting it on fire. They promptly did a search for the vehicle and found the owner to be Jason Alan Thornburg, a man who stayed at the Mid-City Inn in Euless, Texas, almost 20 miles away from Fort Worth. That name stood out when they did the search, because this isn't the first time Jason's name has been brought up during an investigation, but we will talk about that later. To add insult to injury, when looking through the surveillance of the inn, on the night of the fire, Jason was seen carrying large containers from his room 113, into a Jeep. Wearing a full bodysuit, one like what someone would use for handling hazardous materials. It was clear who the culprit was at this point. Jason was arrested and charged with capital murder, which happens to be the most serious crime in the state of Texas. Capital murder is the only offense punishable by death in the state. However, the fact that Jason was the one to do this seemed shocking to all his neighbors. Why? Jason stayed in that room for around 2 months. He was known as a Bible fanatic and a man of God. According to the manager, you would find Jason sitting outside, reading the Bible and encouraging others to come to church with him. It wasn't out of his nature to ask people to come to his room and study the Bible together either. You would also find him handing out flyers to a church in the area. So why would a so-called man of God commit such a heinous crime? The answer may shock you. Sacrifice. In an interview with the homicide detectives, he stated that he believed he was being called to commit sacrifices. And this is where we begin to see just how sick this man really is. Jason did not classify anything he did as a murder or killing. Instead, he called them sacrifices. He believed he was doing the will of God. It would seem that the killings happened the week prior. As a person who lived in the motel told the police that they indeed saw one of the people killed, David Luaris, staying with Jason for a few days. They also stated that they recently had seen a woman with reddish blonde hair staying in the room as well. Jason elaborated and told the investigators when David came, he believed he needed to be sacrificed. So he cut his throat, then dismembered his body using a straight blade in his room's bathtub. Then he put the remains in a large storage bin. 2 days later, one of the unnamed women came by, and he believed that she needed to be sacrificed as well. So, much like how he killed David, he cut her throat, dismembered her body, and put the remains in a storage bin. Another 2 days would go by, and another woman would show up. And David explained that with this one, he strangled her after trying to stab her. When done, he dismembered her body and placed her remains in yet another storage bin. One should also note that the motel manager said that there were noise complaints that week of very loud music playing from Jason's room. It is likely he used loud music to muffle the voices and screams of those he killed so others would not hear. But the manager at the time brushed it off and figured it was just Jason playing loud church music. He had no idea what was really happening. No one did. It is around this time that a strong odor started permeating from Jason's room. This is when he decided to get rid of the bodies by burning them. This is a truly disturbing case. None of his neighbors expected something like this from him. Many saying that they were blown away when they heard what he was being charged with. Even the manager said that he was such a nice guy. However, remember we said earlier this was not the only time Jason's name had been involved in an investigation? When was the other time? There was an investigation when a man was found dead in a house fire in May. The man's roommate was Jason. Jason was a suspect, but the medical examiner did not conclude that his roommate's death was a homicide. Instead, he ruled it as inconclusive, and the police did not pursue Jason further. Had they done so, they would have found the culprit right then and there, and maybe these recent deaths could have been avoided. Jason admitted to it though. He told the investigators that his roommate was another one of his sacrifices. He cut his throat much like the others. Then he uncapped the gas line of the house, lit a candle, and left for work. The house was ablaze in minutes. This was not all. Jason still had yet another story to tell. Before that, Jason had lived in Arizona. He had a girlfriend there. She also was sacrificed. She is unnamed, but she had been reported missing prior to this confession. Jason is a very disturbed individual. That much is certain, and this entire story feels like something straight out of a killer fanatic movie. There is, however, another question. Not all the body parts were found in the dumpster. Why? Though the police never stated where they were or what happened to them, the fact that Jason claimed to be a man of God actually gives us a clue as to what he might have done, or was planning to do with them. In the Bible, prior to the death of Jesus, the way one would have their sins forgiven was through animal sacrifices. When doing this, some parts of the animal was more valuable than others. The choicest parts, as some Bible versions render it. As sick and demented as it sounds, he may have taken them out and set them aside as the choicest parts of the person to be offered up to God. Jason claimed to be a biblical fanatic and claims to be doing this for God, but is that really the case? If he was truly a Bible fanatic, he would know that in the very same Bible that he revered so much, animal sacrifices were not offered after Jesus' death, as it would have been unnecessary. In the Bible, it is stated that Jesus died for our sins. No animal life or human life can surpass the life of Jesus, states the Bible. Therefore, one no longer had to offer sacrifices, since Jesus' life covered all sin already. It's like trying to pay for something that's for free. It's just unnecessary. Furthermore, human sacrifices were not done in the Bible. Just animal sacrifices. And to top it all off, he would be breaking the direct command, "Thou shalt not kill." So after considering all this, we can come to the conclusion that maybe Jason Alan Thornburg is not into the Bible like he says he is. Maybe he is very sick in the head. Maybe he is just a stone-cold killer using the Bible as an excuse to murder people. Or maybe it's all of the above. Regardless, police are currently trying to see if he is connected to any more murders through interrogations. Fanatics exist in everything. Even within those who claim to be holy and men and women of God, we have extreme cases like Jason, who would commit heinous acts like this and consider it as something godly instead of what it is, a sick crime performed by a sick person. We can be glad he is no longer on the streets. But this just goes to show that sometimes even the most innocent people would rip your heart out in an instant.